Hey everyone, it's 10 Types, and today I'm talking about the Eeveelution box deck from Prismatic Evolutions. And, well, okay, this Eevee is not exactly from the new expansion, but we have the new Eevee EX and all the Eeveelution EXs. The Sylveon EX is not a new card, which is kind of weird. It's a card that was actually printed in Surging Sparks. In Surging Sparks, we got the Eevee, which is actually really important to the deck. It's one of the most important cards for this deck, as well as the Sylveon EX, which is okay. We'll talk about the cards when we get to them. But regardless, the Eevee has a really good ability, boosted evolution. As long as it's in the active, it can evolve during your first turn or the turn that you play it. That's obviously that's really where you want to be evolving anyway. You can evolve from the bench, but obviously if you're attacking, it needs to be in the active. Anyways, there are a few issues though. For example, Flareon EX is obviously fire type, and you do need to accelerate energy to it. And so you want to be accelerating energy to it, potentially using something like a Magma Basin. For Jolteon EX, it's Electric Generator. There's only accelerate to the bench when the Pokemon is of that type. So Magma Basin would only accelerate to Flareon EX on the bench, which can cause some issues, but there are other things you can do as well. This first deck, oh, also there's Eevee EX. Obviously, if you want all the evolutions in play, which you really don't, but if you did, you couldn't do that because there's only four Eevees you can play. But you could play for Eevee EX as well, and its ability just lets you evolve it into an EX that evolves from Eevee. It does not, you cannot evolve Eevee EX into something like there's a single prize Sylveon, which is actually a kind of interesting card, but you can evolve it into the like Flareon EX, for example. And Flareon EX is the first one we're going to take a look at here. And we have 5 lists today we're taking a look at with Eeveelution box style decks. A box deck, if you don't know, is a toolbox deck with the different attackers being the different Eeveelutions. So this isn't really a box deck, but Flareon EX has 2 attacks. Burning Charge is the first one, 130 for fire colorless. Search your deck for up to 2 basic energy cards and attach them to one of your Pokemon, and then shuffle your deck. This will not be to itself almost certainly, but it'll be to your benched Eevee/Eeveelution, and then they could be of the same type or a different type or whatever. Let me see the attack Carnelian. I know that, yeah, the Jolteon has the attack. It's called something different. These are translated by Limitless, so attack names might be wrong, but the effect is certainly right. And for Fire, Water, Lightning, which is the types of Flareon EX, Jolteon EX, and Vaporeon EX, they all have this attack, and it does 280. Cannot attack next turn, but that's not a massive deal. I mean, you might be getting knocked out. Decent chance of that happening, but these are all Stage 1 EXs as well. Stage 1 EXs have historically been, within the past like few years of the Scarlet and Violet era, they've not been good. We've seen Gholdengo EX be decent, not a bad card by any means, a decent one, though not like best of the best. And then we also have seen Ceruledge EX and our Caledon EX from the new expansion be pretty decent as well. I think on a similar caliber to Gholdengo EX, so they are brand new from the newest set. We've seen them played some, but they will still grow as time goes on. But regardless, Flareon EX and all the evolutions are Stage 1 EXs, meaning that they are not too hard to get going, and they are the speed of basics theoretically, with the Eevee being able to evolve instantly. We see Dust Storm. We see a lot of like kind of boring stuff here. To be honest, this deck we're not going to spend too much time on, but you do have different ways to power it up, and this is what we'll be focusing on the most. We see Crispin. This is a really nice way to power it up, saying that you search your deck for 2 basic energy cards of different types, reveal them, and put them into your hand. Put one into your hand and attach the other one. So you do need 2 different types to be able to accelerate. If you only have one, then you could just get one from your deck, but that's not super useful. And you can attack with Radiant Greninja in this list and some of the different Pokemon, and also Eevee EX. Eevee EX is a basic here, which does 200 for the same types as the Flareon EX, Jolteon EX, or Vaporeon EX's stellar attacks here. So that is useful, though it's mostly there for evolution and the different decks we'll take a look at. But it is a cool card, and we see 4 fire, 4 water, and 3 lightning energies here. And this allows you do need a big mix for Crispin. You need a decent amount of at least 2 types of energies at least. And you also want something like Super Rod. You also see Tera Orb. Tera Orb is a really cool card. It's an item. It's essentially a ball search card. When you search your deck for a Tera Pokemon and reveal it and put it into your hand, obviously you have all of the Teras. The evolutions are all Teras. They're all Stellars, in fact, but they're all Teras. And the Eevee EX is also a Tera, so that's really cool. You get decent value out of this in some decks and amazing value out of it in other evolution box decks. We see a bunch of different things. Honestly, this deck kind of looks like Hydreigon EX list with some of the cards. You got like disruptive cards, and we also see Sparkling Crystal and Counter Gain. These both reduce your attack cost. Sparkling Crystal reduces it by one of any type, while Counter Gain is by one colorless if you are down. Not too much to say about this deck because you're not really tapping into the Eeveelution box potential. Then, and also I had talked about the deck before in the channel. I've also talked about this deck before. This plays mostly Flareon EXs again. We see the new Bedu and Regigigas Bedu item locks for free. That's a really good setup card. And we also see Magma Basin. So stuff gets like really complicated here, but it's kind of cool. And then you got Regigigas here, which is for 4 colorless, which is a decent amount. It is a colorless Pokemon, and that matters. But if your opponent's actives at Tera, it does 330. So essentially one-shotting any Tera outside of yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything it doesn't one-shot. Is Dragonite, is that 340? No, that's 330. Yeah, I don't know. It might one-shot anything. Certainly any Tera. Certainly any Tera that like sees relevant play right now. But regardless, that's a really strong card. And the way you power up your Pokemon, you have Magma Basin, which accelerates to benched fire Pokemon, but you also have Glass Trumpet. Glass Trumpet's the main way to accelerate to the Eeveelution box, I think, and it's really cool. You can only use it if you have a Tera Pokemon in play. That Tera Pokemon will be potentially one of the Eeveelution EXs, or it could be the EVEX itself as well. And we see Jolteon EX. Oh, we also see Fan Rotom to get out the EVs and Knockdowns, so that's kind of fun. But if you're playing lots of different types of Pokemon energies, you might not have room for, honestly, an engine. But Jolteon EX, I do want to talk about here. And as for your retreat, that's really meaningful. We'll get back to the attack. I'll say it now, I guess 60 for 2, but you can discard up to 2 basic energy from your bench Pokemon, which you want to do, and Glass Trumpet can get the energy zone. I'll talk about that in just a second, or other things as well. And it does 90 for each energy discarded in this way, so this is a Pokemon that's going to be hitting 240 damage, and it's only 2 energy on itself, so it's a pretty strong attack here. But Glass Trumpet says that you choose 2 of your bench colorless Pokemon and attach your basic energy to each of them, splitting those energies up. They can be the same type, but 2 different Pokemon, so that can be onto your EVs before you evolve while they're on the bench. Then you send them to the active. Turn 1 going second, you can play the EV, evolve this EV into Jolteon EX, and then retreat out. You can then, when you evolve this EV into Jolteon EX, you can use this EV's ability. This is the EV from Astral Radiance, which will be rotating like a month and a half, I think, after the Eeveelution box like deck comes out with Prismatic Evolutions, but we will have it for a little bit. And its ability, Resonant Evolution, says once during your turn, I don't know why it says once during your turn, but when you play a Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your other EV, which is obviously the only other EV you play, you may search your deck for a card that evolves from this Pokemon and put it onto this Pokemon to evolve it, then shuffle your deck. So this will allow you to have this EV on the bench, this like lower, or the they both have 50 HP, which isn't ideal, but this the older one you can have on your bench and then play like evolve Jolteon EX in the active or onto this EV, and then evolve the benched EV to Flareon EX from your deck using its ability, and then you can Magma Basin onto the benched Flareon EX. Otherwise, you need to play like switch cards or something, which the deck doesn't even play any switch cards. So you could use Glass Trumpet as well. It gets, as I said, it's complicated. There's lots of nuances with the deck that get more complicated as we look at more things. But then that's also how you power up Regigigas. You have the Teras in the forms of the Eeveelutions as well as EX itself. And yeah, I mean, this isn't the craziest looking deck though, but then we have a few more here. This next one plays 4 Eeveelution EXs, and it plays 3 EX and 2 regular EVs, and it plays Bedu Victini, which I have not seen anyone play Victini. Victini is a really interesting card here. With its ability, Victory Cheer, attacks used by your Evolution Fire Pokemon, do 10 more to your opponent's active. And this 10 more damage, not damage counters or anything like that. The main attacker is Flareon EX, boosting this to 140 for 2 or 290 for 3. If you don't know, literally no Pokemon have 290, but that extra damage is generally always nice. Though I'm not exactly sure the use cases of this Victini. These decks were all played in Japanese City League tournaments as well. And I'm looking at the Limitless website, so you can find those there. and you can't play with them if you're playing on like Pokemon TCG Live at this point. But later on, you will be able to, but not yet. So you have the we see Bedu in this deck again, and we see the Vaporeon EX now. This has two attacks. The second attack here, the Stellar attack does, I mean, it's the same as the Jolteon EX and the Flareon EX, but it yet again is a different type. You see like slightly different stats and stuff, so that's kind of interesting for type coverage. It's not that interesting, and Fire's like not very good. I mean, Serial GX is certainly okay, but you're one-shotting that with the other Pokemon. However, you have Heavy Squall. This is a really interesting attack. Not necessarily good interesting, but it's for water colorless. It does 60 to each of your opponent's Pokemon EX and is not affected by weakness or resistance, which matters for the active. Ultimately, this isn't super great. I mean, a 60 spread or even just 60 snipe would be useful to snipe evolving basics. Obviously, that's not really what's going to happen. The only evolving basic EX is the one that you play in this deck, Eevee EX. But like regular EVs, Charmanders, but Doofs, that's immune. But things like that you can't snipe because they're not EXs. And then you look at like Charizard EX, or no, you look at like Pheasantipti EX, Squawkabilly EX, and they have way more HP than that. Squawkabilly EX, the lowest HP EX in the game, is still being three-shotted by this. But this does allow you to finish off EXs on the bench. But then you look at Charizard EX and Trapghost EX, TLS Ugarpon EX, Eevee EX, or Vaporeon EX. They all are Tera Pokemon, and Tera Pokemon, they don't do that much. They enable certain things, but the Tera like effect thing says that they don't take bench damage. So this is not going to be targeting those. So the amount of Pokemon this actually targets is pretty small, and it's not super effective, but it's a card that definitely can have value, and it does offer a little bit more versatility, and that's cool. We also see Gravity Mountain to reduce stage 2 HP, which is kind of fun. Sparkling Crystal, Area Zero Underdepths to expand your bench. So you have lots of different like options here. We see a bunch of Tera Orbs. You play 9 Tera Pokemon in this deck, and wait, no, you play 8, I think. Yeah, no, you play 8, and then you play 5 different ones, which is really cool to see. And then the last one we have here is the Leafeon EX. Leafeon EX has 2 attacks. Honestly, I don't really know these cards very well. The Eeveelutions aren't great, but they're really interesting. I mean, they're Eeveelutions, right? So we have Verdant Storm here for Grass Colorless, the more payable attack cost, and it does 60 damage for each energy attached to all of your opponent's Pokemon. This is not a bad attack at all. It's specifically really good against Charizard EX. I don't think this card's been played in it hasn't been played in non-Eeveelution decks, but it has been played in these Eeveelution-based decks, and it's good. It is an extra energy type, adding in grass energy, but it does give you type coverage, and it's not that hard to power up. You can do Moss Agate. It does not necessarily always one-shot Charizard DX, though. They need 3 energies in play, and they might be able to play around it, but it's not crazy that they'll want 3 in either. And then Moss Agate here, the tax, that's the translation of the name, which, as I said, I don't think we know the official name, but regardless, does 230 for grass, fire, water. Obviously, 2 of those 3 types were already in the deck for the Flareon EX, the Vaporeon EX, and the Jolteon EX, but now you can also heal 100 from each of your benched Pokemon. How good is that? Probably not that great, right? These aren't super tanky. They're not, like, they're from 260 to 280, I believe, all of them, the Eeveelution EXs, so they could survive hits, and you could tank. It could be nice if your opponent's, like, Dragapult EX setting up in certain ways. The deck only plays 1 grass energy, that's not really something you want to be doing, but Leafeon EX is really here as a tech against Charizard EX, also maybe like Hydreigon EX. There might be a grass weak Pokemon I'm forgetting as well, but regardless, it is definitely a solid tech option. Maybe your opponent just has a ton of energy, like maybe they're playing Gardevoir EX and all of a sudden they have 7 energies in play, or 6, I guess, is enough to one-shot anything. Like their Gardevoir EX, you can snipe that and knock that out. So that's an interesting option. We even see Surfer, just like lots of different cards going on in these decks, as I said, which is really cool. The next deck we have here is, I don't know, like these decks are categorized on Limitless, and I don't know how this is categorized, but this plays all 4 of the Eeveelution EXs, and it also, and these decks finished like okay, none of them were like super great in the tournaments, but also it's just like a limited sample size for the individual decks. But regardless, we see Batu and Radiant Greninja and the Eevees back, we see Eevee EX back, we see 4 EVs and 3 EV EXs, and we see a bunch of Tera Orbs. So now we have 9 different Teras, a total of 11 Tera Pokemon in your deck. That's a lot. And we talked about the Vaporeon, the Jolteon, and the Flareon, as well as the Leafeon. We'll take a look at actually the Sylveon EX. The Sylveon EX is a really interesting card. In terms of what you're attacking with, though, you have 3 fire, 3 water, 2 lightning, a grass, a psychic, and a darkness. Also, the Eeveelutions. I imagine most people know this watching the video. Maybe not, though. But obviously, they're different. They're like in the video game, they're different types. But in the TCG, they're not, because there is 1 fire, 1 lightning, 1 darkness, 1 grass, and then there's 2 water and 2 psychic, being Vaporeon, which is water, but then Glaceon moved from the ice type to the water type. All ice types in the video game are water in the TCG, and then fairy Pokemon in the video game are now psychic in the TCG. This was a change. There were fairy Pokemon at a time, but regardless, Sylveon EX was the fairy, now psychic, weak to metal now. So that's a thing. And Magical Charm here for Psychic Colorless costs 160, and during your opponent's next turn, attacks used by the defending Pokemon do 100 less damage. As I said, this card has been played in some different things as well. It's a really weird card. So that's like an okay attack. It's a very whatever attack, but it's okay. And if you're hitting for Psychic weakness, maybe it's what you want to do. But then you have Angela here for Water, Lightning, Psychic. Choose 2 of your opponent's bench Pokemon, and also this is like kind of hard to power up, obviously. I mean, the Sylveon EX, in the Leafeon EX, you only need to add in 1 extra energy type from the original 3. So it's not the hardest to power up, but certainly not easy. Then you choose 2 of your opponent's benched Pokemon, shuffle those Pokemon, and all cards attached into your opponent's deck, but you cannot use this back-to-back turns on like in any manner. So this could be insane. Cannot like bench your opponent out or take any prizes, but can really, really hurt your opponent if you, let's say, boss or iron bundle. You can just guarantee get rid of their active if you boss up. And so your opponent is playing a Charizard EX, and they have a let's say a Charizard EX and the Pidgeot EX. You can just gust up their Pheasant EX, we'll say, and then just angulate away their 2 really important stage 2 EXs. So that's really, really crazy. Yeah, but it's such a weird card, but it's a cool card. And as I said, it's been out. I have not actually played it. It seems kind of sketchy on its own. And in like Pidgeot EX box, this deck plays I guess maybe play a water energy theoretically if you aren't playing Sylveon EX, but this literally, it plays 1 psychic, 1 water, and 1 lightning. And so that's, not the easiest thing to get going. And it's just really weird, but it is cool. Regardless, though, you have Sylveon EX here, which is a card that is really unique. It's definitely like when we saw this card, we were like, that's really weird. And then we have Espeon EX, the other Psychic EX here, and it can do 160 again for Psychic Colorless colors, just like Sylveon EX, and discards a random card for your opponent's hand. So that, if you're hitting Psychic weakness, is probably what you're looking for. It's disruptive. It's not super consistently disruptive, but it could be really strong in certain situations. Then we have Amazes. I don't know. They're like different rocks. I don't know any of the rocks and essentially any of the stellar Pokemon. I know a few, but just a handful. Regardless, devolve each of your opponent's Pokemon by shuffling the highest stage evolution card on it into your opponent's deck. This is different than TM Evolution, which returns it to their hand. So Espeon EX is definitely a card that is weird, probably like lower value than the other EXs, because but against that case with the like Charizard EX deck, maybe they have 2 Charizard EXs and a or like a Charizard EX, a Charmeleon, and a Pidgeot EX. You just send them all into the deck, and this can kind of take knockouts if you've done some damage to the different Pokemon. Like let's say that Vaporeon EX we were talking about earlier, doing 60 to a Pidgeot and 60 to a Charizard, and then devolve each of them and knock them out. Theoretically, though, maybe not, because they might be playing a 70 HP Charmander. But regardless, you can do something like that. And that's interesting. You have just lots of options, obviously. Then we have Umbreon EX, and Umbreon EX is this card. Again, you have this pretty generic first stack, 160 for 3, 1 of which is Darkness here. And then your opponent's active is Confused. That's kind of annoying. Darkness weakness is like not the best, but it could be hitting weakness on some meaningful Pokemon. Then you have Onyx, the stellar attack here for Lightning, Psychic, Darkness, which is definitely hard to pay because you have 2 lightnings than one of the other types of energies. But then in this list, then you discard all energy from this Pokemon as well, and you take a prize. That's really interesting. Ultimately pretty slow. Like you have obviously a very similar attack cost to the like Flareon EX, the main Eeveelution EX attacker. But then this card also says that it does a big damage, so it can probably take two prizes, and it doesn't like discard all your energy. So I can't attack next turn, but Umbreon EX is not great, but it's interesting, and in some situations it might be the only way you can close out games. And then we have Leafeon EX, the last one. This has two attacks. Frost Bullet for Water Colorless. You do 110, and it does 60 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Or no, sorry, 30 to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. This is an okay, yet still pretty mediocre attack, but it's okay. It's not bad. And then you are also able to use I don't know, the second attack for Grass, Water, Darkness, knock out one of your opponent's Pokemon with exactly 6 damage counters on it, instantly knocked out. That's really interesting, and obviously not something that we see really at all, but definitely a really interesting attack. I mean, we see things kind of like it, but the idea is you spread. Maybe attack twice with Frost Bullet, maybe you attack with the Vaporeon EX I was talking about earlier. Again, very difficult to attack with because you only have one Darkness and one Grass. You do have 3 Waters, but really interesting stuff. I just went over all of them. You have 4 Tera Orbs, 4 Glass Trumpets, Bedu, Radiant Greninja, Morty's Conviction, like a really not played very much supporter. It's not, I mean, it's played some, but it's not played that much. I came out in Temple of Forces, so it's been out for like a year almost. So yeah, some interesting things going on here. Just like all the decks, this is truly an Eeveelution box deck. I have no idea how good this is. It seems very sketchy, but very fun as well. Lastly, we have this build with Flareon EX and Leafeon EX, and also the Eevee EX, which is just a bunch of knockdowns. We see this other Eevee, which really surprises me. I mean, it's got the stack searching for Pokemon of different types, and it has higher HP as well, which is nice. And then you also have the Eevee EX to attack with and to evolve as well. See Flareon. There's a lot of different things going on in the deck. You have Manaphy for bench protection, Spirit. These are like cards that are just safe countery Pokemon. You get Radiant Charizard, obviously a very strong card that isn't so focused on setting up, because you do have this 4/4 knockdown line. You have Fezznifty EX, which you like really want to play, and really most decks in the game, right? Fezznifty EX is, let me look at this from the most recent regional tournament: first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth. Then it was 10th, 11th, 13th, 14th, 16th, 17th. I mean, like, it's almost every deck. It's not actually every deck, but it's most decks. Pheasant EX is really good. But regardless, you have Crispin, you have just a little Glass Trumpet action here, and you have like pretty more normal stuff like Prime Catcher. Honestly, this looks pretty similar to a Trapghost EX list with certainly a bit of spice in it, but it's really interesting here seeing just what this deck is looking like with you, like, yeah, Briar. This is a more, I'd say, down to earth list where you have the counter to Charizard EX or maybe like something else with Leafeon EX, and then you also have, and you're what you heal. Is this the healing one? Yeah, that's the healing one, which isn't like a super good attack, but could be useful, and just some interesting things going on here. I think the Eeveelution box deck is really weird, but it's seeing a little more play now in Japan. It was seeing like very little, at least in terms of success. It was like, I think there was just 2 lists. Now we've seen a few more, but we're all really excited to see how good these cards are. But tell me down below in the description, how good do you think these are, what the best ones you think are, and what you want to play. But anyways, I hope you enjoyed the video. Consider liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, joining the channel, all that good stuff. I'm really excited to I'm a little busy still, but then I'll be spending a little more time on videos. I got some big ones planned, but I hope you enjoyed, and as always, I'm excited to see you in the next video.